Dear students, our today's topic of discussion is the poem The Cold Within by James Patrick Kinney. He is an American poet who wrote this poem in the 1960s. Children, this poem is a parable. Parable means a short story that teaches a lesson. In this poem, six people they are sitting around a dying fire, and this poem gives message of compassion, acceptance and universal brotherhood. Children, in this poem, six humans are found trapped together in extreme cold. Their fire, their only hope of survival in the cold, was fast dying. Each one of them held a stick of wood. If any one of them gave up his or her stick to feed the dying fire, all of them had the chance to survive. But sadly, no one of them was ready to oblige for one reason or the other. They were unable to overcome their prejudice, and the result is their death by cold, the cold within. Children, now let's discuss the poem in detail. Six humans trapped by happenstance in bleak and bitter cold. Each one possessed a stick of wood, or so the story is told. Children, the poem opens on a dramatic note. It attracts our attention at once by peculiar use of diction. Diction is use of words. The poet says that six humans get trapped by chance in a very bitter cold. He uses human and not people so as to refer to all human beings, not some people. The line, six humans trapped by happenstance, is to be read very carefully, though the six persons were together in a situation which seems to have been arranged, even though it was accidental. That is why the poet has used the word happenstance. Happenstance means an event that is arranged, not by chance. The six persons were thus in a situation from which there was no escape. They could not escape from this situation. They were sitting near the fire, which was fast dying. Each of them had a stick of wood. This is how it is told in the story. We later realize that the stick in each hand is the symbolic of sin. Their dying fire in need of logs, but the first one held hers back, four of the faces round the fire. She noticed one was black. Children, the fire which was dying needed to be fed with logs of wood. The first of the group was the woman who was not ready to renounce her stick, who was not ready to put her stick of wood into the fire to keep the fire burning, because she had noticed that one of them was a black. She did not want to save the black man. Thus, she acted out of her racial prejudice. The next man, looking across the way, saw one knot of his church. Church here means religion, and could not bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. Birch means birch tree. The next one found in the group was a person not belonging to his religion. He could not persuade, he could not motivate himself to give up his stick of wood to help a person of another religion. He suffered from intolerance. The third one sat in tattered clothes. He gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm the idle rich? Means the third man was very poor. He was in tattered old clothes. He was full of bitterness and envy, jealous for the rich. He gave his coat a hitch, means he tightened his coat, which is a symbolic of meanness. He did not want to help the rich because he thought the rich do not work hard but thrive on the labor of the poor. So he holds back his stick, thinking that it should not be used to warn the rich man among them. The rich man just sat back and thought of the wealth he had in store and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor. Means the fourth, a rich man, holds back his stick. He wants to keep his wealth away from the undeserving, lazy, poor persons. Thus, the rich showed his greed and stinginess. The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from his sight, for all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. It means the fifth, the black man. His face showed how much revengeful he was. As the fire was dying, he thought he had the chance to hurt the white by keeping his stick with him. He clearly suffered from the vice of spite. Spite means hatred. Hatred from the white people. The last man of this forlorn group, forlorn means lonely, did not here means nothing except for gain. Giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. The last man of the group has his own reason to hold his stick back, as no one else is ready to give up his stick, so he too will not. He thinks he will only give to those who give first. So the last man in the group lacked generosity. Their logs held tight in death's still hands was proof of human sin. They did not die from the cold without, they died from the cold within. At last, the fire extinguished. All the persons died. They died not because of the cold outside, but because of the cold within. They died because they were too selfish to help others. Each of them had a log still in his or her hand, suggesting that no one had given up sinning, being unkind for one reason or the other. So, children, at the end of the poem, we come to know that this poem refers to lack of feelings for others, cruelty, indifference, hatred, so on and so forth. Like a good parable, the poem conveys the idea that we must tolerate, if not love, one another. We should be kind and generous towards our fellow human beings. We should not allow religion, color, or any other prejudice to become mean, selfish, and even self destructive. Children, in this poem, the poet shows that each one of us means we all, represented by six humans, is afflicted with some kind of prejudice or sin. Sin here presented by the log of wood in each hand. The most obvious sins are of hatred, stinginess, greed, revenge, etc. The poem shows that each person in the unlucky group holds on to his or her stick, which should have been given to the dying fire. Had they given up their sticks, their sins, to be consumed by purifying fire, they might have survived or might have gone to the other world without the burden of their sins. but they preferred to die with their sins in their minds. The poet gives a kind of message or warning to us when he refers to their tragic end. Each one in the group knew that it was only the fire that could make them survive. Each had a stick of wood which could keep the fire burning. But sadly, no one was willing to give up his stick for one reason or the another. The result was their death by cold, the cold within. Children, the idea is that the coldness in man's heart is a kind of death. So, children, after reading this poem, we need to learn that we all should give up all kind of prejudices and sins such as racism, envy, arrogance, revenge and greed. So children, I hope you understood the poem well. Thank you.